My thoughts on personality type. I'm an INTP, which is introvert, intuitive, thinker, perceiver. Part 1, the I in INTP. How I focus energy or get energy. Introvert. Other option here being extrovert. First off, I'm very much an introvert. I enjoy spending much of my time alone, either just thinking or studying. It's my personal time, and I feel really worn down if I don't get enough alone time. I still get along fine with others, and I'm not overly awkward in social situations. I just feel worn down and off balance if I don't get time to myself afterwards so I can rejuvenate. Extroverts, on the other hand, get energy from those around them and being in large social groups. Not me at all. Alright, on to part 2. The N in INTP, which is how I perceive or take in information, which is my intuition. Other option here is sensing. I tend to think more in the abstract and look at the big picture here. I also tend to think about the what if in life. Like, if I do this, what could happen? And what could happen if I don't do this? This can really be a problem sometimes if I need to quickly decide something, especially when there are many different options and several possible outcomes for each option. I take everything I know from past experiences and various sources around me, and I basically make an educated guess. It can take a while to be comfortable deciding what is the best option using this method. Once I do make a decision though, I'm usually very happy with it. It saves me from all the second guessing once the ball's already rolling. Sensing people, on the other hand, tend to think in the concrete and not so much in the abstract. They focus their attention on the details rather than the big picture, on immediate reality rather than future possibilities. While I do admire their spontaneity sometimes, I still prefer to look before I leap instead of the other way around. Alright, moving on to part 3. This is the T in INTP. This is how I prefer to make decisions. I'm a thinker rather than a feeler. I make decisions using more than personal preference and give more weight to logic and data than I do to emotion. I tend to value the objective over the subjective. I spend a lot of time studying and analyzing things. That includes people, including myself. Feelings seem completely illogical and are often out of touch with what is really going on. So making life decisions based on personal fluff just doesn't make sense to me. I don't think feelings are invalid, I just don't think there's something you should base decision making off of. The downside of this is sometimes I may seem cold-hearted to anyone who doesn't get where I'm coming from, and that seems to be the majority of people, which can really make it kind of rough. On the plus side for me, I'm not one to really take things personally, so I don't care if they're offended. However, this does further contribute to me being seen as a big meanie. This is where me seeing the big picture comes in to save the day. If it weren't for this contributing factor, I would undoubtedly be a total jerk. But since I do look at all the possible outcomes and do not wish to be completely ostracized from society, sometimes I just keep my thoughts to myself. This makes me a great listener. 4. The P in INTP. How I orient myself to the external world through perception instead of through judgment. Basically, this means I like to keep my options open, stay away from having too much of a routine. To some people this may seem risky, but to me it's all just part of learning to go with the flow. On the downside, I can wait a bit too long sometimes. So yeah, procrastination could definitely be a problem for me. This means making last-minute decisions sometimes. But I've usually spent so much time thinking it out that it turns out okay anyway. When this whole thing really becomes a problem is when other people are stuck waiting on me. I may not be the best person to lead the group, but I am great at figuring out what to do whenever a last-minute change is necessary. This comes in pretty handy when the leader makes a snap judgment without taking all the possibilities into account. All that thinking usually negates any problem with procrastination when it comes down to actually making a decision. Plus, I've always felt like the best decision is the decision you can change. All in all, I think most of the INTP's weaknesses are pretty well balanced out by their other personality factors, and I'm pretty proud to be in the same 1% as Darwin, Einstein, and Thomas Jefferson. I'm putting a link in the bar below so you can go take the test too, and tell me, what's your personality type and what are some of its strengths and weaknesses? How do you deal with the weaknesses and stay balanced?